Hey there guys, Mike here, and I'm going to be hosting episode 6 of Behind the Frame. Andrew has been chatting about this for a while. I've also got engagement from a guest on Instagram asking that please can I do a behind the frame scene of a particular image that I took in the Amboseli while hosting a private guided safari in February this year. So let's jump straight into it. This is the image, elephant standing pretty still, just blowing dust around his feet. As the sun was rising. This was right outside the camp, and a beautiful start to the morning. But just before I get running, let's have a quick look at the settings I was using. You'll see over here ISO 320 at 102 millimeters, f3.2, a shutter speed of 500th of a second. And that's a sufficient shutter speed for the scene. He wasn't moving rapidly, he wasn't throwing dust onto his back, so for the focal length that I was using, this is perfectly fine. Also looking at my exposure, top left over here, there was no exposure compensation whatsoever. I was on neutral, on 0, and the reason for this, and there's a very, very important reason why I did this, is because I wanted to expose correctly for my sky and not for the foreground too much. If I underexposed a little bit more, what would have happened is the foreground would have been even darker and that sky would have been even more beautiful and popping even more. But then I would have lost too much detail in my elephant. So once you start understanding not only all your camera settings but exposure compensation, you can then start shooting and photographing for your processing. So when I saw the scene, I got myself and my guest got us ready and said, listen guys, let's expose correctly for the sky, because there were beautiful colors, the purples, the orange, the blues, and we wanted to preserve that color. Alright, so I've already done a bit of a basic edit to this image. I'll show you exactly what it is now. So looking at my basic panel, so remember, all the effects that we would add on these guys down here is going to affect the whole image. So you'll see I would have dropped highlights a touch, increase shadows a little bit to enhance this foreground a touch, whites up a little bit, and I dropped the blacks. Oh no, blacks are actually on 0 still, because if you push and hold Alt, you will see that all these areas here that are now black is where you'd have pure black in your image. So actually don't need much over there at all. -3, and there's a few spots, so that's fine. Clarity up a touch, vibrance and saturation, just to enhance that sky even more. Tone curve, all I did here was drop highlights a little bit to get more detail in the sky, and I up blacks or the darks a touch just to get a little bit more clarity in my elephant. So hue, saturation and luminance is where I've done quite a bit. You will see that in saturation, this is how blue the blue or how orange the orange is. I've lifted blues, purples, oranges, yellows, a little bit of aqua to get these colors in the sky popping quite well. I worked luminance as well, because what luminance is not how blue it is now anymore or how orange it is. It is how dark that blue is or how light that blue is. So I've worked that to a point that I really do like. Details, sharpening up by a little bit. I took my radius to 0.5 just so that it's not, you have to be careful, you do not want to over sharpen your images. Details to about 75, that's fine. And then by pushing and holding Alt and moving masking, I know Andrew's touched on this in many of his episodes, only the white area that we see now is the area that's going to be or that's going to get the sharpening effect to it. And then what you would have seen is now noise reduction. I have not touched luminance at all. Alright, my ISO is 320, so it's not very high, but my color noise is all the way to 100. So just before I go on, I'm going to zoom into this elephant's face. You're going to see if I take color noise back to its original or the default setting at 25, if I pull it down to 0, you're going to see quite a lot of color pixelations in and around these dark areas. The blues, the greens, the mauvey colors, and this is color noise. And notice what I do is when I take this up to 100, all of that disappears. There's no more of that color pixelation, but the all-round effect and look of the image is not altered. Alright, so back to its default, up to 100, and there's no changes that happen in this elephant or the rest of the image except that you're ridding that color noise. Luminance, on the other hand, this is your monochromatic noise, your black and white noise. If I take this up to 100, you're going to see the image becomes wax-like. You see that elephant's face, everything becomes soft and smooth and not ideal at all. So take that back to its default. There's not much noise in this image, so this is definitely not needed at all. But color noise, definitely, because there's so much shadow and a lot of dark area here, you would want to rid any of that strange color pixelation in the image. You'll see with lens corrections, I have enabled the profile corrections. This is a quick one. You'll see the corners just lighten up a touch. Effects, I've just added a bit of dehaze, which obviously adds to that beautiful look in the sky. Cool, so that's it for all the general settings. Alright, so now we're going to start working on one particular, or with one particular special adjustment or localized adjustment tool, and that's your graduated filter, as you can see down here. And this is, I think, a tool that many people do not understand fully. Alright, so that's why I want to work on this, and it's a pretty simple and quick edit of the image. I'm going to take away the information on the top left by just pushing I. This will drop away. Alright, so let's get straight into it. Graduated filter. So what do we want to do in this image now by looking at it? The elephant's still a little bit dark, so let's lift and get a bit more detail in your elephant. So what I've done is I've now selected my graduated filter over here. Then I come to the bottom of my frame, click and hold, left click and hold, and drag upwards. Come down to the little button, pull it up. By pushing O, you will see this overlay of green appears. Push it again, it disappears. Push it, it appears. Push it, it disappears. Or you can just go and click on the bottom left here and show selected mask overlay. Okay, so how this works, now I'm going to keep it green for now, is because I've pulled from the bottom upwards, everything beneath this lower line is going to get 100% of whatever effects I make on the right hand side here. Everything within here, 75% fading to 50, 50 fading to 25, and then anything above the very top line gets absolutely no edit whatsoever. Alright, so pushing O, and let's just drop this a touch, lift this a little bit. Okay, so what we're going to do here, I'm going to double click effects. It takes all my previous settings back to neutral or to 0. And what we want to do here now, because we want to now obviously lift shadows, you don't want to be too crazy here because it's going to firstly look way unnatural, and secondly, you don't want to burn these areas. So you just want to lift it a touch so you can at least see a little bit more clarity and a bit more detail in your elephant. Okay, so let's go run with shadows, just a touch like that. Say 37 should be fine. A little bit of whites and a bit of exposure, just a touch. Okay, and we can also increase clarity a little. Let's go sharpening a touch. Alright, so remember, everything under here now is getting affected. Let's take sharpening down. We can do that a bit later. Alright, so that's looking okay. By clicking this little on and off switch here, you'll see that difference. So from very, very dark, by lifting the shadows and exposure a bit, you're getting a lot more detail in that elephant now. That looks great. But now, looking at your overlay, you will notice that the sky in certain areas is also getting affected by this, which we do not want. So while still in the graduated filter, you will see there's the word new, edit that we are currently on, and brush. If you go and click brush, this doesn't mean that it takes you to your localized or special adjustment brush. It's a brush within your graduated filter, and this is going to allow us to erase areas that we do not want to be affected. Alright, right now you're going to see it's the cursor is a positive brush. By pushing and holding Alt, that cursor becomes negative. you can either increase or decrease the size of your brush by using your two fingers scrolling up and down on a mouse, or your hard square brackets will increase and decrease the size of it. Alright, so by pushing and holding Alt, I want to erase the effect off of the sky, because I don't want that area to be lifted. I do not want to lose the color and the saturation and the look of that sky. Alright. You'll notice now at one point I went a bit too far down here. Just by letting go of Alt, that cursor becomes a positive again, and you can just go paint over that area to lift it again. Right, now by pushing O to get rid of that whole overlay, you'll see that now only the elephant and the foreground has been lifted, and that sky behind it and that tree is now holding that beautiful color, and that's exactly what we wanted. Okay, you can either say done and then go click on it again and create a new one, or if you were busy with this one and now what we want to do is create another one to now go and enhance the look of that sky a little bit more, is you just go click on new, boom. You'll see that this little button is now gray. If it has a black center like that, it means that you are currently editing or working on this particular filter. But if I click new, this one falls away. I'm going to click and drag from the top, click and hold, drag all the way down. You'll see that this button now has got the black center, meaning that this is the current active filter, the one that you're currently using. So I'm going to pull this down like this over this one, which is fine. You can have 100 of these layers, it's not a problem, because you edit them and enhance the look of different things within the image separately, which is great. So I'm going to remember that overlay, pushing O. You'll see now everything, because I pulled from the top down, everything from this line upwards is going to be affected 100% within this, 75 to 50, from 50 to 25 to 0. Nothing beneath this is going to be affected by whatever I change up in the sky right now. So I'm going to push O. I'm going to double click on effects, take all these settings back to 0. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop highlights a little. Alright. Saturation, we can take it up a touch. And dehaze. Look, you'd never want to do that. Alright, that is not cool. So you want to be just using a very, very slight hand here, just to give it a bit of an enhanced look. So again, by clicking on and off, you'll see the effects now of the foreground and the sky coming into place. So I think that sky is looking pretty cool. I like it, it's not too much. Alright, but remember now, because we've overlapped and went onto our elephant, you can see that he's become quite dark because we've dropped highlights, we've upped DAs. So what we need to do again is go into the brush. Remember, not the special adjustment and localized brush, it's a brush within the graduated filter. So click on that. Remember, by pushing Alt, pushing and holding Alt, that cursor becomes a negative, and then you basically, if you want to see it, push O, go paint off that overlay. Right. By pushing and holding spacebar, you can zoom into your animal. Let's just go and change this. Just want to quickly a 1-to-1 zoom. Pushing and holding Alt, cursor becomes a negative. I'm going to go paint the overlay off of my animal, because we don't want that darkening DA effect on him. But over there, touch, just add a bit more. Pushing and holding spacebar, clicking will allow you to zoom out. So now you can see that I am not on, that overlay is not affecting my elephant anymore. It's only affecting the sky. Now by pushing O, you'll see that my elephant still looks good. Just increase that a touch. Still looks good. And the sky is looking great. We can also maybe just add whites a little bit to pop those clouds. Yeah, plus 10, that's looking great. And then we can say done. So that is the use of our graduated filter. And you can already see before and after by pushing Y. You can see how dark this elephant was. There's still good detail in it. If you zoom in close enough, you'll see there's good detail in this elephant, in the dust. But now, just by using this simple tool, 2 steps, one from the bottom and one from the top, you're enhancing the look of this image big time. Push Y again, you come back to your image, and the last step in this is that we just want to touch up the elephant a little bit more, and that's using your special adjustment brush on the far right. Come and paint this guy by pushing O. You will see the overlay and where you've painted. Just come touch the side of his body here. Come down the leg, down the trunk. Okay. So, now that we've painted this guy, by pushing O, again, that overlay falls away. You'll notice what I've seen here now. Push O, push and hold spacebar, zoom in. I think I've tapped V. Oh no, C, it's comparing. Apologies for that, but let's go back into develop, special adjustment brush, highlight that one, that's one we're working on. Pushing and holding spacebar, zooming in, I can then go get rid of that. Pushing and holding Alt, getting that cursor to a negative, all looks good. Okay, so pushing O, getting rid of this overlay so we can actually see what we're doing. I want to increase shadows by a touch and whites maybe by a little. Over here now we can work a little bit more clarity and sharpening, because now remember, only that green area, if I push O, this green area is going to get the effects that I am adding over here right now. Alright, so pushing O, that looks cool, not too much work done on him, which is great. What we can also do is just maybe up exposure a little. We want to create a new brush, and this is going to be the final step. And you can see this dust at the bottom here. This dust can also be enhanced a touch. So push O, go paint around this guy. There we go. Okay, pretty cool. Just double click on effects, take all that to 0 again, and see that's already changed. So what we're going to do here is maybe just up the whites a little, up the exposure a touch, some clarity, maybe a bit of contrast would work in here. Let's have a look. Add a bit of contrast, some saturation to add a little bit of color. And if you want to make it a bit warmer, just go play with temperature. It's a bit too orange there. Put a +6. That should be good. Yeah, that looks cool. Push done. And there is your final edited image. I think it looks pretty cool, and I think and I hope that this shows you the importance of understanding not only your settings but particularly your exposure compensation in order to photograph for your processing. Alright, so before I even put this image into Lightroom, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it, and therefore it saves you a lot of time when you come and sit down in front of your computer. So let's have one more look, the before and after image. Alright, and yeah, something I did right in the beginning that I did not mention while editing is, let's go into the crop factor over here, is that you will see down in the bottom left here, there's a horrible old dead log that I did not want out. So firstly, cloning and healing that out is going to be a very difficult task. It's probably not going to be something that's going to be overlooked. You will notice it in the frame. So therefore, I've just cropped to a 16 by 9, cropped that away, got it out of the frame, and that's what I was left with. Cool, so there you have it, guys, episode 6. I hope that you have learned something from this, and if you do have any further questions regarding this image or regarding any of my other images, something you want me to do a behind the frame episode on, please get in touch. I will look forward to engaging with you, and I look forward to the next episode. Have a good one. Just for now.